I miss that sexy smile.
Hey everyone, happy Friday. Happy Friday. It is Political Friday today. We have a fantastic show planned for you. I have a fantastic guest I'm going to intro in just a second. But just to let you know, today we're talking Joe Biden. We're talking AOC. We're talking DeSantis versus Trump. We're talking about red states versus blue states. We've got some bring back masks hashtags popping up on Twitter. But the most important part of this intro right now is that we've got Brandon Tatum. We've got the Officer Tatum. I am obsessed with his content. I know you are too. We have him here for the full hour today. And I'm just going to do a little intro. He needs no introduction, but we like to do it anyway because we're fancy here on Jedediah Bila Live. He is a 7-year veteran of the Tucson Police Department, co-founder of the Blexit movement, which you know about. They made some big waves a few years ago, and they're still making them. Founder of TatumReport.com, host of the Officer Tatum Show. By the way, his show right now on YouTube has over 2 million subscribers. I think it's almost at 2.1 million. It's a lot of people watching, and for good reason. I was watching last night. I was laughing. I was laughing real loud. It's good stuff over there. He is kicking ass. He also has the Officer Tatum store online, which has some really badass merch. We're going to talk about one of the shirts actually later in the show that he has over there. And he also has the best Trump shirt I've ever seen. It's like a tatted up Trump. And it's just the coolest thing ever. So you guys should go check that out. Welcome to the show, Brandon Tatum.
Jedediah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited. I'm actually blessed to be here. I watch your show all the time. And I just want to say thank you for having me.
Well, it is my pleasure. I've been watching some of your commentary, some of your political commentary, and you bring that perfect combination of information and humor, because sometimes you just got to laugh. You know, you just got to look at what's going on. If you don't remember to laugh, you'll just lose your mind. So I want to get right into it with you on topics today. Let's talk about Joe Biden. Joe Biden is still the president. Now, we know he doesn't know where he is most of the time. Something's going on there. You know, I don't know. It's sad. We laugh sometimes, but really it's sad more than anything, and dangerous, by the way. Leader of the free world, doesn't know who's around him, what's going on, walking off stage in the wrong direction. But it seems to me, Brandon, that people are starting to notice this problem. If we look at a recent poll from ABC News, Washington Post, it's pretty bad for him. His job approval, we know, is under 40%, which is terrible. Just 35% of Democrats and Democratic-leaning independents favor Biden for the 2024 nomination. 56% want the party to pick someone else. And if you look based on the issue, specifically on the economy, with inflation near a 40-year high, his approval rating is 36%, while 57% disapprove. So here's my question to you, right? We know they're not rolling out Joe Biden next round. It's not going to happen. He's not going to be able to do it. What are your predictions as to what the Democrats do? They're in quite a predicament. What happens when the election rolls around? Who are they going to put up? How are they going to maneuver this situation? Are they going to somehow just like shift him out? What's going to go on here?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have no idea what they're going to do because they already put up Joe Biden, who was a failed candidate before, and he's absolutely out of his mind. He's seeing dead people. He don't know where to go. He don't know who he is. He can't even speak properly. And the guy has no chance of winning over America for a second time. And I don't even really know if he did it the first time, but he don't have a chance the second time. But I don't see anybody else they have. They can't use Kamala Harris. She's talking word salads almost every time she pick up the mic. And then they don't have anybody else that's viable, anybody else that has name recognition or that's popular. So I think that they are going to take an extreme L. I guess they was hoping that Joe Biden could last a little longer. Mm-hmm. But I mean, his dementia, his mental decline, and I'm not being funny, like his mental decline is so apparent at this point that I don't think he's going to make it past his own first term. So the Democrats are in extreme trouble, if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, it's very sad to watch. And I always say, like, where is his family? Where are the people around him? I mean, because this guy, it's a daily struggle for him to just get from point A to point B on a stage, let alone get through a coherent sentence. I just look at their assortment of possibilities, though, and like Gavin Newsom, I mean, no. Beto, no. I mean, who do you even bring forth? I really don't know. What's interesting also about this poll, because I think what's happening now is Democrats are hoping that they know they don't have anybody good to run. They know. And they know that the fear politics of the last round aren't going to work this time around for everybody. So they're like, what do we do? And their hope is that Republicans will have some type of fight, like there's going to be some type of DeSantis-Trump fight, and it's going to go badly, and they're going to be able to run against someone as opposed to running someone good themselves or running for something in terms of policy. One thing that was interesting in the poll as well was Republicans and GOP-leaning independents split 47%, 46% on whether Donald Trump should be their 2024 nominee, a 20-point drop for Trump compared with his 2020 nomination. So I want to ask you, what do you think about this Trump-DeSantis potential feud? Is it going to happen? Do you anticipate it? And if it does happen, is it good for them maybe that they'll duke it out and may the best guy win?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen whatsoever. You know, I did a poll on my channel. I think it had almost 100,000 people that voted, and DeSantis was down 45 and Trump was 40 or 55. So a lot of people have been consistently going for Trump. I think because of his first term and all the amazing things that he did, you know, standing up against the media, calling it the way it was. I think a lot of people want him to run again. Now, here's the thing. I think if Trump is unobstructed, which means that he don't end up going to jail over this stuff that they're concocting against him, I think he's going to have a clean path to running for president. People are going to vote for him overwhelmingly. And a lot of people are going to transfer from being on the left, the Democrat side, to voting for Republicans because they just cannot stand these Democrat policies that are destroying America. But if somehow he gets into a situation where he has to be jailed or, you know, they bankrupt him because of lawsuits, or he gets sued and the lawsuit goes through, and there's a lot of drama that's preventing him from continuing to campaign, I think somebody like Ron DeSantis could emerge. The Democrats have to run Gavin Newsom. That's their only chance as somebody who's popular and who's actually running a state with a large population of people who unfortunately vote for him still. I have no idea how Californians are even voting for him, but I think they're going to have to run him. We have a strong chance, at least when I say we, I mean the party that I support has a strong chance. But I think DeSantis is probably going to take the back seat unless something drastic happens. You
know, Gavin Newsom has the likability of Beto O'Rourke, and by that I mean none. I wrote on Twitter the other day, I was like, do they have the same acting coach? I don't know what it is, but there's this like very orchestrated, inauthentic feel that they both have. I think Gavin Newsom is a huge problem for them, though, because, you know, winning in California is not winning in the country. And he destroyed the state. The state is wrecked. I mean, if you look at what he did with the lockdowns, if you look at what he did with the masking, if you look at what's going on in schools over there, I certainly don't think Newsom's policies in California are reflective of what the country at large would embrace at all. And it would be really easy, actually, for someone, Trump, DeSantis, I don't care who it is, to look at what he did and say, everything you did in California, if you want to do the right thing, just do the opposite of that. And that's the direction you want to go. Now, DeSantis, maybe it's a little bit of an easier argument because DeSantis actually did do the opposite and it worked out quite well in Florida. So that would be a good parallel. But I just don't see how Gavin Newsom translates as anything but a failure for Democrats. I don't know if you see it differently, but I think that's a loss for them.
Well, all of their people are failures. Mm-hmm. Look at Joe Biden. He's half dead. And then you got Kamala Harris, who she's unqualified. She don't know what she's doing either. And then you look down the list. What do they got? Hillary Clinton again? She's a terrible candidate. She should be in jail, to be honest. And then you go and look at Gavin Newsom. He's completely trash. The dude is the fakest politician that I've ever seen in my life. The guy is telling people, turn your power, turn your electricity to 78 because you're trying to save the state. And this guy probably has his electricity or his air conditioning unit on 65. That's why he's wearing a sweater in the video he made. And then he wants everybody to shut everything down. But then the LA Rams can play a football game, probably costing $1 million just to turn the lights on and off. And then you look at what he's trying to do with electric cars. I think in 2030 or something, he want there to be no more manufacturing of gas-powered cars. I mean, they can't even handle their electric grid cannot even handle a weekend of a heat wave. Mm-hmm. They're not going to have enough electricity. And you want every citizen to have an electric car? These are the dumbest, most irresponsible politicians I've ever seen. So Democrats actually have nobody to pick from. And Stacey Abrams, they love her, but I mean, she's a failed candidate out there in Georgia. So they have absolutely nobody to pick from. And I don't think that that's their goal, is to have a quality person to pick from. Their goal is to make you hate who's ever on the other side enough to vote against that person. And I think that's what they did with Trump.
Yeah, that's all they have. It's going to be, I said before, that's not going to be fear politics. And by that, I meant, I don't think pandemic number 2 is going to slide in time to help them out this time. But I do think it's going to be fear politics, issue-based fear politics. It's going to be the abortion ruling and how they can try to manipulate that for the female vote to come out and say, Republicans want to take all your rights away. It's going to be some other type of fear politics that gets involved. I'm curious, though, I don't know if you saw this, Maggie Haberman of the New York Times, she has a book coming out, and they excerpted it in numerous places. And she claims that Trump called DeSantis fat and phony and whiny. Now, I don't know if any of this is true. I really don't know. I don't believe any of these people. But the fact that she writes the New York Times, that's like X number 1 for me. But regardless, I think it's important to see that the media game has already started because they're banking on division on the right. They need that division on the right to have any shot at success. So what do you think you're going to see coming out of left-wing media as it relates to Trump and DeSantis over the next year or so?
Well, they understand that DeSantis is a real threat to them, even if it's not in 2024, but in the future, because he is beloved by Republicans. He's beloved by Floridians. But what they're going to try to do is they're clearly trying to send Trump to jail. I mean, the FBI investigation, him getting sued in New York, it's just the craziest thing ever. They could have done this any year, but they try to do it during an election year because he endorsed all these candidates in the midterm. I mean, it's clear politics to me. So they're going to try to ruin Donald Trump's reputation. And then they're going to also try to ruin DeSantis because their next thing is not COVID anymore, it's global warming. And they're going to blame global warming on what happened in Florida. And then they're going to act like DeSantis is a god as he controls the weather, and they're going to say it's his fault, it's Republicans' fault of what happened in Florida. And they're going to pit those things together. And when we get closer to the election, if DeSantis is even rumored to run, and if people are having this idea of saying, I want to vote for DeSantis or Trump, the dynamic of that, then they're going to try to pit Trump and DeSantis against each other. But I just really hope that people leave politics out of this and vote for the best interests of your own community. Mm-hmm. And I say your own community. Do you want high taxes? Do you want inflation to be out of control? Do you want our government giving tens of billions of dollars to Ukraine? I mean, where do you want the direction of the country? Find that person that's advocating for that, whether it's local or on a federal level. And those are the people you vote for, not necessarily party line.
Yeah, I've been very clear about, truthfully, whether it's DeSantis, whether it's Trump, whether it's somebody else that pops up, that's the person that's got to win, right? Because it's just too serious now in terms of what folks on the left are really trying to do. It's gotten quite serious. And I love that you brought up the climate agenda because you're right. The left operates as what they want to do is control people. And COVID enabled them to institute that first and foremost. And now they're going to utilize a climate agenda to control human behavior. And they saw that they got away with quite a bit in the last 2 years. So they're feeling empowered to get away with even more. So we're going to see a lot of talk about climate. We already see the Eat Bugs campaign. Don't eat meat, eat bugs. And, don't drive this car, drive that car. In the meantime, these people have no interest in, energy resources and building up energy resources in the United States. It's just utterly ridiculous. I want to ask you, though, about the Italian Prime Minister-elect's speech. I don't know if you saw that. Giorgia Meloni, she created quite a firestorm, and Joe Biden had some comments about it. Shocking. He says this. Now, this is a bit of a word salad. I'm going to read it because I truly don't know what he's talking about, but I think it's important because this is how he talks. He says this: I mean this sincerely. This is at the Democratic Governors Association reception. You're going to think this is a little out of whack, what I'm going to talk about, but democracy is at stake. There's a case being made around the world, not just here, and there's an awful lot of folks who believe that democracies can't be sustained in a 21st century because so much is changing in science and technology, the environment, a whole range of things, that it's awful hard to reach a consensus in the short amount of time you have. So that, I don't know what he's talking. I don't even care about that. Just pointing out that he's, throwing words out. It's like he borrowed the Kamala word salad and just vomited out a bunch of words. And now he says, you just saw what's happened in Italy in that election. And the reason I bothered to say this is we can't be sanguine about what's happening here either. I don't want to exaggerate it, but I don't want to understate it. So he is now suggesting that, Italians who democratically elected that government are anti-democracy. And this is coming from the same guy that spent the last 2 years wanting to criminalize people who opted not to get a certain medical treatment, who wanted them punished, who wanted them fired. So the irony is real thick for me on this one. What do you think it was? I don't know how much of her speech you saw, but what do you think it was about her that got under the skin of leftists so much? And what do you think about the difference between what Biden says and what his administration has actually done in terms of democracy?
Well, Biden don't know what's going on. You know, somebody wrote that speech for him. He don't even know who this lady is. Like you said, the young lady that had passed away just a month ago on Twitter, he wrote a condolences, and then he expected her to be at the event, and he's supposed to meet her family on Monday. I mean, the guy don't know what's going on. So I can't say that this is Joe Biden's authentic thought here. But I think that what's happening is that people are afraid that the world is waking up to these progressive liberal ideas that do not work. Mm-hmm. This progressive idea that we need to turn everything green, like you said, they want us to eat bugs instead of meat, yet they're flying on a private jet eating filet mignon. And they sitting there just making up stuff to put us in a desperate place of fear and also division. But I think that I didn't watch what she said. You know, once she started speaking another language and I saw them subtitles, and I hate reading, so I said I ain't gonna be able to read that. So I'm assuming that she's doing a good job because the left is hating her. But yeah. I'm assuming that she's probably speaking to the hearts of the people who are fed up with what's going on in Italy, just like they're fed up with what's going on here in the United States of America. And Biden and the team can see the parallel. And if this becomes infectious around the world, that people are finally saying these people are nutty and we need to focus on the conservative ideas, then they know that they're going to be in big trouble.
Yeah, you really hit it right on the head. So you watched it in spirit, I will say that. But yeah, one of the things
her tone showed me that she was about business.
Yeah, so, and you can always tell you're right by like who got pissed off. Right. You're like, oh, it pissed off all the right people. Oh, it must have been amazing. And it's true. It always works out that way. One of the things she did talk about, though, was identity. You know, she talked about, you know, being proud of your identity. She referred to herself as a Catholic, as a mom. She talked about religious identity and national identity and gender identity and all of these things that people want to take down and want to tear away from people so that they have no roots. And that is a really great transition to something I want to ask you about. We're going to show you this video in case you didn't see it so you can react to it. But there was a House hearing this week, and obviously a topic that's really being talked about a lot now is this issue of gender identity. Because in society right now, they're coming for the kids. And it's gone beyond a live and let live, you know, conversation now when it comes to grown adults. And now this stuff is being targeted towards small children in schools, in clinics, and whatnot. So there was this House hearing. Representative Andrew Clyde from Georgia was talking to this Planned Parenthood director. It's a director for primary and trans care, Bhavik Kumar. And this is the exchange. We're going to play the video, and then I want to get your reaction to what Bhavik Kumar says.
Dr. Kumar, can biological men become pregnant and give birth?
So men can have pregnancies, especially trans men.
Dr. Kumar.
Okay, so men can have pregnancies, especially, you know, trans men can have pregnancies. So I don't know if you knew this, Brandon, but now we are in 2022 and biological men can have pregnancies. Your thoughts?
These people are completely nuts. I don't even know why we're having it, you know, why our country would be having this conversation. Listen, you're going to either go to the OBGYN or you can get your prostate checked. I don't care what you think you are or who you think you want to be. You one of the two is going to happen to you. You're either a man or a woman. Mm-hmm. And I tell people this all the time. If you end up getting into a medical emergency, they're not going to identify with what your gender says. Or even if you die and you become a historical person and they go back and dig up your bones and look at your DNA, there's nothing in there going to say this person identified as XYZ. They're going to look at your DNA, the chromosomes, and they're going to determine if you're a man or a woman. And this is the thing. I wouldn't mind. I mean, because we live in America, you got the freedom to do whatever you want to do. I don't care what you do. If you want to be the Tyrannosaurus Rex, I do not care. However, don't make me be associated with your mental illness, and don't bring the children into this. And this is the biggest point that I have. They started out on this slippery slope, and I knew it from the very beginning. And I would argue that this is leading directly to pedophilia. They started out saying, live and let live. Okay. All right. Now they say, well, we want a civil union. Oh, okay. Now we want a marriage. We want to have a new identity for marriage. And then not only that, we now want 78 genders. And then now we don't want 78 genders. We want your children to now believe in 78 genders. Then we want them to transition, not only just transition, but we want them to transition at 7 years old. And then we want the teachers to lie to your children and not tell you about it. And then we want to change the identity and the criminalization of pedophilia and call them minor attractive persons. And then we want drag queens to tell story hour. But drag queen story hour is over now. We want them to strip in front of your kids now. I mean, it has gone down to a slippery slope. And when it gets to the children, we all know where it's going next. We all know what their true agenda is. Mm-hmm. And like I say, I want to be very clear. I could not care less if a person want to be trans, if they're gay, you want to love another man. That has nothing to do with me. But don't make me have to participate in the things in which you believe that I believe are false. And that's my whole premise with that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And, I always say the slippery slope is getting very, very slippery. It's like a slip and slide now. It's full on. And
they got baby oil on it now.
They got exactly
baby oil.
They got baby oil on it. You never know and what Brandon's talking about pedophilia is actually that is happening. We showed the video on this show of people that now are coming out and saying, well, don't call them pedophiles. That's hurtful. And we talked about that. So now you can't call a pedophile because somehow that's damaging to them. And that's where society is, and that's a deeply unfortunate, sick place. I want to remind people, we do have a super chat I'm going to get to, and then we'll come back to you. Probably a question for you, if I'm guessing. But I want to remind everyone, hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button if you hear that, like the conversation, and comment in the comment section. Let us know what you think about what Brandon's saying, what I'm saying. Do you agree? Do you disagree? We want to hear from you. All right, Tyler, we got a super chat.
So, a lot of love for Brandon, but there's a really interesting debate going on. A lot of people in the chat are saying they're sick of both the left and the right. And let's not forget that George Washington warned of political parties in his farewell address for this reason. But Wyatt said, I'm not voting for, I'm not going to support a Republican unless I hear, quote, end the Fed. So a lot of people would be interested to hear from both of you on the potential of a third party candidate. Will we ever move away from the typical Republican, Democrat Party, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, so Brandon, this is a great point because I think that there are a lot of conservatives, a lot of folks on the right who feel that, myself included, by the way, who feel that Republicans have been largely useless. You look at the last 2 years and you say, well, when mandates were instituted, where were Republicans? Oftentimes you feel like Republicans are holding hands with those big machines like Big Pharma, for example, the big time lobbyists. They're holding hands with all the same people that the Democrats are holding hands with, and that a lot of what comes out of their mouths is like a phony interest in reducing the national debt, a phony interest in preserving freedom. And people can only look to like Rand Paul and Mike Lee and a few people here and there that they can count on, but the party at large is useless. So what is your take on a third party, and what is your take? What do you say to people who say like, I'm fed up with both sides of the aisle?
Well, I'd say third party would probably never happen. But I do understand how people are fed up with both sides, because I am too, man. These Republicans, some of them are just whacker than the Democrats. At least some of them, at least the Democrats, you know where they stand in most cases. But some of these Republicans, they're so fickle, you don't really know where they stand. They're just Republican in name only. They don't have any actions that are conservative or related to the Republican Party and what the Republican Party should be. However, I will say that it's worth us overtaking the Republican Party and creating an environment in which is going to be conducive for our country. Donald Trump was one of the first, people to be interjected into the Republican Party that wasn't a part of the Republican establishment. He wasn't a part of the guys who argue on the floor of Congress, and then they go have drinks together at a bar and laugh at us. Mm-hmm. So I think Donald Trump was the first wave. You got other politicians that are jumping in there, the younger guys, younger women who are coming forth and saying, look, we're going to stand up for American values. We're going to stand up for religious freedom. We're going to fight against our own party if we have to. Mm-hmm. Right here in the state of Arizona, you have what they call McCain rhinos, people who are just a part of the establishment. They hate Trump. But, there's a wave of people that are saying, I'm sick of y'all, too, because we love what Trump did. We not like all his tweets and everything he do. He talk in circles sometimes. But however, his policies are effective. And you've seen it here in the midterms that so many Trump endorsed candidates are winning. And so I think that our focus should be, we don't have to recreate the wheel. Let's just, get more of the Republican type people that we trust into office. And then we can phase out the ones who we do not trust. But to think that we're going to have a third party is nearly impossible, because a lot of people are what we call low information voters. Some people are just dedicated to the Republican Party. I mean, Hitler could run as a Republican and people wouldn't care. They'll just vote Republican. The same thing for the Democrats. I mean, Democrats are pushing socialism, Marxism, and people that have escaped some of these places are still voting for them.
Yeah,
they hate Christians. They hate God. And not all of them, but I'm saying generally speaking, as a party, they hate God. And then you have people who are Christians still voting for them. So some people are low information voters. They're going to vote for whatever party they like. We might as well infiltrate the party and do what's right. And I'll say this last one, this one point. I think conservatives should not be afraid to run as Democrats in certain areas. Let me say why. In California, you will never get anywhere as a Republican in most places in California. You'll never get anywhere. However, the Republican message is actually good, and the Republican message actually identifies, or people can identify with it. They just will never hear from a Republican because they've been brainwashed to believe that Democrats is the only way. So some people that may not have run for politics before, if they come into it with a good message and they put D next to their name, it's a possibility that they may get some votes in some of these other places. We've seen Democrats do it in Republican places as well. And that's where we get the term rhinos. These people are really Democrats, but they know they can only get votes if they have an R next to their name.
That's actually fantastic advice for people out there who might be thinking about running for office, because it's true. In New York City, you have to see the D for Democrat, that they just check the boxes. They walk into the voting booth and it's like, boom. There's really no research is even done oftentimes. It's just like, oh, I'm a Democrat, vote Democrat. They can't conceive of voting for a Republican. So it'd be really interesting if somebody had, more conservative, more Republican ideas, but ran as a Democrat, what that would do. That could really cause quite a bit of turbulence in the system in a good way. I want to ask you, though, I'm curious, when did you get involved with politics? When did you sort of get into the scene?
Well, when I was a police officer in 2015 or 16 is when I first started, because I grew up a Democrat. Because when I was growing up, if you black, you're a Democrat, and Republicans are racist white people. That's just what it was. No information, no research. That's what it is. And so I was considered myself more of a Democrat all the way up until like 2015, 2016, when I became a police officer. I became a police officer in 2011. But while I was on the job, a lot of people were just telling me, like, Brandon, you are not a Democrat. You're not on the left. Look at what you believe. Look at what they stand for. Look at what Obama's doing. And it took me a while to kind of get the point. But then in like around 2015, I just got sick of Obama. I got sick of these Democrats. I feel like they're just a party of people who just give lip service. They don't actually do anything effective. So the first time I ever looked at the Republican Party was in 2015, 16. I liked Ben Carson. He dropped out, endorsed Trump. I went to a Trump rally. And because I just wanted to see if this guy Trump was legit. I knew who he was, but I didn't know if he was a legit politician. And so I went there. I was blown away. I was absolutely blown away. Everything he said, I agree with. Everybody there was cool. It was like the best of America was at his rally. And that got me into politics. I endorsed him. I supported him. I lost a whole bunch of friends. I would say that they're not my friends. I lost a whole bunch of people that were acquaintances that I thought were my friends. And I just continue to move forward in the political arena. And I tell you what, it's just like, I don't know how religious you are, but it's just like when I got saved, when I came to Christ, spiritually, my life changed. Same thing in politics. When I realized I wasn't a Democrat, it's like in the physical realm, financial, morally, everything just accelerated in the right direction when I realized that I wasn't a part of this leftist party of victimhood. So that's kind of what got me involved, and then it just continued to grow from there.
There's a lot of people who have shifted over from the left to the right that have a similar story and have that same reaction of like, everything came together for me. And they often say, like, I went to a rally for someone who I was told to hate. And I'm like, wait a minute, what's wrong with this guy? Like, I agree with all this. So it's like that epiphany moment of like, what have I been doing that I hear about a lot. The reason that I asked you originally was because we had gotten that question about, align myself with Republicans or Democrats. I don't trust any of them. And I actually got into politics around 2010, and it was right around when the Tea Party movement was really active. And what appealed to me about that is that those were people who really didn't care about Republican, Democrat. They were issue based. They were like, I want to reduce the debt. I want people to keep more of their hard-earned cash. And in many respects, they were taking on Republicans, the John Boehners of the world, Mitch McConnells of the world, who were fundamentally useless. So I always say to people, like, don't underestimate your power, because this was just a movement by the people that was really, founded just by a bunch of people starting rallies in small towns and everything. So you can make a huge difference in those capacities. I want to ask you, I know you've talked a lot about college, and is college for everyone, and is college a scam now? The Post Millennial had an article out about how red states are suing the Biden administration over student debt relief. This is what it says. It says, this is just a small point in it, but 6 states under GOP leadership have joined forces to sue the Biden administration and halt the president's recent student debt relief plan that canceled up to $20,000 for some borrowers and will cost taxpayers nearly $1 trillion. So Arkansas Attorney General Leslie Rutledge is leading that effort. There are 6 states already. I anticipate there probably will be more. So, and what strikes me immediately about this is, like, nothing is free. I love these people who feel like free means that it's actually free. No, honey, that's somebody else's money. That's somebody else's money. But I want you to weigh in a little bit on, first of all, do you think any of this student debt should be relieved for people? And what is your take on college in 2022? Good idea, bad idea, scam? Tell us.
Yeah, so I think that, this is what I would tell my children, is that don't go to college unless you have a plan. And you have to balance your debt to not debt to income, but your profitability. You have to say, if I go into debt $100,000, what will I yield from going into debt like this? So if I'm going to be a doctor, if I'm going to be a lawyer, if that's my path to success, it may be, valuable for me to go into a little bit of debt, make an investment in myself, because I'm going to turn out on the other side and make triple this money and have an illustrious career. However, if you're going for home ec studies or women's rights development or something crazy like that, and you're spending $50,000 to do that, you are making a huge mistake. That is a poor investment that's going to kill you financially for the rest of your life. So I would tell my children, make sure that if you go to college, you have a plan. Now, I played sports in college. I was a scholarship athlete, so it was irrelevant the cost of college for me because it was free. Now, if you're going to college for free, have fun, do whatever you want to do. You don't have any recourse for that. But if you're going to pay for it, or your parents are going to have to pay for it, make sure you have a strategic plan that leads you to a job that's going to lead you to making some money to pay back that debt. Now, when it comes to Joe Biden forgiving loans, I think the government should not forgive anybody's loan, because where does it stop? If you're going to forgive a person's student loan, then, hey, forgive the mortgages, because people got mortgages too, and that'll help out a lot. If you can forgive somebody's mortgage or pay it off, or the government can find a way to forgive, So I think that is ridiculous to do that. It's creating an environment of government dependence, and it's ushering people into free college. And people have to understand this: college is never going to be free. Somebody's going to pay for it. The taxpayers are paying for it. Now, if the government is now giving you money, they now can tell you what to do. And so people think they're going to go to Harvard for free. They're going to go to University of Michigan for free. They're going to go to Florida State for free. No, they're not. What's going to happen is the government will say, we'll give you money, but you have to now go into the field that we think that you should go into. You're going to have to take entry tests to see where we think that your educational success will be, and we'll pay for that university or college. It's the same thing about churches, nonprofits. When you allow yourself to be subject to the government, they begin to tell you what your terms and conditions are. And in America, we don't want to live on terms and conditions of a fickle government. And so I hope that people are realizing this. I don't want anything from the government. Listen, pay your debt off. Everybody has paid their debt off before you. And then here's the thing that I think that is unfair, which is why it's the same thing with race. When you start being prejudiced, or you start to favor a certain group, you create envy and you create turmoil, because the people who actually paid their student loan debt off that took them 10 years to do, are people who sacrificed for 10, 15 years just to have enough money to pay so they didn't have any debt. You're literally spitting in their faces and telling them you're a dummy for doing what's right, And the people who neglected their neglected their responsibilities are now going to be forgiven and can live a fruitful life by doing the wrong thing, So I think that I hope people are mindful of these things.
Yeah, well, I think it's an effort to gut personal responsibility out of the system, and the message that they want people to get, those people that you're talking about who are frustrated, saying, "Well, I made all kinds of sacrifices, and I got two side jobs to help pay for this," and all. They want the lesson to be, "Well, don't do it again next time. Just don't worry. The government will step in. Just wait. Advocate for big government next time instead, and government will step in and make your life easier," because that's how you build a nation of dependence. You have to convince them that don't work so hard. Don't put in so much effort. Don't own your own life and make your own choices. That's hard. What's really easy is to vote for big government, and we'll come in and we'll make everything easier and better. And of course, they don't do that, and you wind up with a nation in decay. We have a super chat I want to get to, and I want to remind everyone right before we get that, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and don't forget to comment in the comment section. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Please share your comments. We'd love to see them. Tyler.
Yep, Derek gave $20. Said, "What are your thoughts on a Republican and Democrat duo running together? Say if DeSantis ran with a Tulsi Gabbard." Brett Weinstein suggested it back in 2020. I love the idea. I guess a question for both of you guys.
So I think it really depends. For me, it would depend on who those people were, what their policy looked like, because what I'm interested in is limited government policy. What I'm interested in is getting the woke nonsense out of schools. I'm interested in less government, lower taxes. I want more cities around the country to be empowered to look like, more states, I should say, to look like Florida and less to look like New York. So it really depends on the combination. I think that would be really hard to find. And the problem with it is I think at a national level, that's going to be very hard for people to digest. Republicans are going to look at a Democrat on the ticket and be like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't trust that." Democrats are going to look like a Republican I don't know. So I wonder if a lot of people will just stay home. I don't know how that would work. It would have to be someone maybe like a Tulsi, who has a lot of conservative support in a lot of different areas where you felt like maybe in some respects that might even be a better pick than some of the establishment Republicans. But I think it would be a tough pill to swallow at the national level at this point. What do you think, Brandon?
I agree with you, Jedediah. You got to think somebody's going to have to compromise, because if you go on a ticket with a Republican and a Democrat, let's say the Republican president, Democrat vice president, and you bring up the topic of abortion. Like, a lot of Democrats are progressive with abortion, and a lot of Republicans are a lot more staunch about making abortion illegal because it's murder. And so are you going to have those two dynamics on the same ticket? I don't know. It's going to cause a lot of controversy and conflict. And what may have to happen is that somebody has to cave. Either the Republican is going to have to say, "Yeah, we think abortion should be legal up to 15 weeks. And the Democrat is going to have to say, "Yeah, we don't believe in post-birth abortions. We'll go back down to 15 weeks. And look, we can all get along in the middle." That's going to tick off a whole bunch of evangelical Christians, women. I mean, you're going to go down the list. So I think it could happen, but I think that somebody's going to have to lean more to the other side. And the opposing party, meaning the Democrats, are going to rip them to shreds. And that's what it's going to end up being. And if a Republican were to cave and believe in climate change and believe in masks and vaccines and stuff, Republicans are going to disown that person. Mm-hmm. And so it may cause more conflict in the election than it will be supportive of what we would consider the utopia unity, or unifying utopia between the parties.
Yeah, I mean, even just look at having a McCain and a Palin on the same ticket. I mean, that was hard enough because they really didn't see eye to eye on a lot. And people on the right were not voting for John McCain. They were voting for Sarah Palin. I mean, there was a lot of, disparaging stuff that happened toward her. But if you actually really tracked the way popularity in the polls was going, people were excited about Palin. All you needed to do was look at the rallies. I mean, people were not showing up for John. They weren't. So it's very hard, even when you have that type of discrepancy. A super conservative and a very moderate Republican is hard enough for people to wrap their head around. So I don't know. It could work, but I do think that on issues of abortion and on certain issues, there would be too much of a split to bridge that gap. We'll see, though. Nothing is off the table. You never know in this country. I try to say you never know what's coming next, because that's true. I want to ask you about crime, because you have so many years in the police department. What do you feel? What do you think when you look at what's happening in certain cities around the country? I mean, I was in New York City. I moved from New York City to South Florida. in large part because the crime was out of control, and I have a 2.5-year-old, and I was like, I cannot justify raising him in this cesspool. And I went back and I visited recently, and I witnessed 3, potentially 4 crimes. I was there for like less than 10 hours, and I'm just observing, an assault. Oh, look, 2 robberies, public indecency, people just men, doing drugs, snorting up stuff, shooting up stuff on the street, broad daylight, half naked, little kids walking by and parents having to struggle. I mean, it's unbelievable what's being witnessed. So why is this happening? And is it a police force that feels unsupported? Is it a police force that's lost its way? What's really going on here?
Well, I'll say this. The first thing that comes to my mind is you reap what you sow. And so these cities that are run by these progressive leftists are sowing discord, sowing division, sowing this message that we support the criminal over the people who are arresting the criminals. We support the criminals over the victims. And they're reaping the benefits of that, and which is tearing up many communities around the country. And I'll say this, one of the biggest components here is also the morality on the police department. First of all, they're understaffed. And then if they were to go out and I just say get into a shooting where they're defending their lives or the lives of other people, and the cop is white and the suspect is black, now you're going to prison. And now the administration, people that are high up in the police department is not going to have your back. The attorney general, you're gonna literally lose everything, even if you're doing something that's justified because of political correctness. So cops don't want to be cops anymore. I wouldn't dare at this point, if I was a police officer, be proactive in policing. I wouldn't. And proactive policing means going out and hunting the criminals before they commit the crimes. I wouldn't do that. Oh yeah, you call, we'll show up. I'm not going to go catch Tyrone on the street selling drugs, and then he runs. I chase him down. He pulls a gun on me, or I thought he pulled a gun on me. I shoot him, and now my life is completely over. I lost my family, and I'm going to prison. And no cop is going to risk that. They don't pay you enough. It's $55,000 a year for you to risk your life and then go to prison when you do the right thing. So it's a combination of these terms that are destroying law enforcement in America, and the defund the police movement. Democrats want to back off of it now because it's election season. They advocated for defunding the police. And in many cases, they did defund the police. And when you defund the police, you demoralize the police, you dehumanize the police, and you lose police officers. So the guys that have been on for 25 years, that are veterans, that can teach the young guys how to be good quality police officers, they're retired. They have no leadership. And then good people, quality individuals who want to be heroes and come in and save their cities, they don't want to be police officers. They're going to do something different. So then you're left with a police force that is, understaffed, in some cases maybe underqualified, because when you can't get quality candidates, you have to lower the standards. And so we're going to have an influx of policing that America does not recognize. And I hate that it has happened to such a beautiful profession of heroes, but that's where we're seeing it go in this country, in these progressive areas. Mm-hmm. There are red states and Republican areas where they treat their police officers great. The public is great and it's safe, just like you see in Florida. But then there's other places around the country that police officers are suffering.
I hear so many guys, former police officers, retired police officers, were in the military, that come to me and say they have children now, and they say they have sons in particular, and they say, I would never advise my son to become a police officer or to go into the military. And it's so hard to hear because these are some of the most important jobs. I mean, the military is on the front lines of our defense, and all of the people who would be inclined to do that job well and to do that job properly and to not be focused on some, nonsensical woke politics and instead actually be there for the mission. Those are the very people that are now saying, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this under this newfound structure. That's not why I'm here. So it's you could wind up with real crisis. And we are actually. We see the crisis emerging in the cities. But I'm always thinking with the military, like, are we headed for a national security crisis if the military is being completely dumbed down in this respect and weakened every step of the way? What are your thoughts when you see, some of the woke stuff that now is front and center for, military members sitting and watching these ridiculous videos about pronouns and all this stuff? What are your thoughts on that?
It's absolutely infuriating. I wish I could run for president and I would change it all, because the men and women who serve with their life, listen, this is not a social experiment. It's not a game. The people who are in the military are going to defend this country with their lives. And I would argue that they are going to destroy other people's lives to make sure we're free and safe. And that's all we should be worried about. The baddest, most competent people in the United States of America that can go overseas and defend here on the home turf with their lives and be proficient, I would argue, killing machines. That's all I want. I want people out there that are the baddest people in America serving in our military. I don't want somebody who don't know if they're a man or a woman, who got a beard and want to wear a dress. Get your silly self out of the military. You go and do something different. We don't need to be talking about pronouns. We need to be talking about how do you take these people, this threat out the most effective way possible? How do you handle a firearm? How do you jump out a plane? How do you drop bombs? I don't want to hear nothing about, transgender bathrooms. Do that stuff in some liberal facility. There's no place in the United States military for that crap. And there's no place for this feminism movement either. Men and women are different. You cannot try to force women to do the same thing that men are doing in the military. They don't have the lung capacity, muscle density, all of these things that men have that God has made us with. Quit trying to make us compete. Mm-hmm. We need the baddest jokers out there. And if you cannot qualify at this high level, you can't be a participant. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. This is the way our country works, because when you look at these other countries, look at China, look at Russia, you look at these people, they got killing machines. Mm-hmm. Their commercials to join the military is the young people who have this drive in their heart to be heroes and to be these grandiose type people. They are the ones joining the military in Russia. We got, dudes that claim that dudes with tampons, mm-hmm. talking about they want to be in the military because they want to be on a desk and do their hand like this all day. Mm-hmm. I can't stand it. I may be a little extreme for some people because I would, people may say I have toxic masculinity, but I live in a time where I come from warriors. I don't come from little wimpish cowards that's sitting around whining all day. I come from warriors. Mm-hmm. I was watching a documentary just last night. Me and my wife was watching. It's an incredible documentary if you haven't seen it. It's called 11 Minutes. And I'll never forget this guy on it. It's about the Vegas shooting. Mm-hmm. I'll never forget. It's crazy because they give it from a police perspective, and you're going to cry. Your husband's going to cry too. It is an amazing documentary. But however, there's one guy in there. He's on a SWAT team. He's going to take out the guy in Vegas up in the hotel. His son is at another location, and his son is calling him, "Dad, they're shooting. Can you save us?" His son ended up at another hotel. He said, "Dad, I think the shooter's in here." This is what the dad says. He's on the SWAT team. He's literally walking down the hall, getting ready to try to confront and kill the shooter. And he's talking to his son on the phone. He said, "Son, it's time to man up. If that dude comes in that hotel, it ain't no running." Wow. He said, "You need to kill him. Mm-hmm. And if you're gonna die, you're going to die on your feet. You're not going to die on your knees." This is what he's telling his son in a real life threat situation where people are dying everywhere. Mm-hmm. These are the type of men that we need in the military. These are the type of men that we need in society. We need warrior spirit type people. And I know I got off on a tangent, but it eats away at me mm-hmm. when I look at people in the military and colonels and transgender, and it's just, I cannot stand it. I cannot stand it.
Well, your tangent actually worked perfectly because that's where I was going next. You couldn't have known that, but I was going to point to, you have a shirt on sale on your website, and it has the slogan, "Make men men again." And I think that's a very, very popular, as you know, this is something I talk about all the time now because I've been battling modern feminism for a very long time, and I've been standing up for unapologetically masculine men and the fact that men and women are different, and having, a mom and a dad in the home is really special and important. And here's why I've been making these arguments for a very, very long time. But what I'm seeing now is, in particular, a lot of pushback. Like you said, well, I don't know if people are going to, agree. I might be too much for people. I think actually there is a growing number of people, both men and women actually, that are standing by what you're saying because it's now becoming dangerous, right? If you're in a position of privilege and there's no problems and there's no violence and it's like a movie, then you can afford to take all these, oh yeah, feminism and everything, this is great. The second, real shit hits the fan, you're going to want that guy to show up. You've got a problem on your block. There's chaos that erupts. You're going to call somebody that you know is a badass. You don't want them to be deciding what type of shoes match their pants before they decide whether they're going to come and save you. No, you want a guy. You want a real man's man to show up, somebody who knows how to fight, somebody who knows how to handle a firearm, somebody who has, experience with self-defense, someone who's big, someone who's strong, because they may have to carry your ass out of there, like somebody me who's little. Throw me over your shoulder, no problem. And that's just a reality that I think a lot of women are acknowledging, and a lot of men are finally saying, enough with this toxic masculinity, enough with telling little boys to sit down and shut up in school, enough with assuming that a guy like Brett Kavanaugh is guilty on day one because it suits a Me Too movement. So there is a big pushback, and I'm just curious the responses you get when you talk about stuff like this, about, bring back the real men and be proud of your masculinity. What kind of responses do you get from men and women when you have those discussions?
Yeah, great question and great topic. Most of the people that follow me are conservatives, so they love it. They love me to say this. They get motivated, encouraged to be better versions of themselves when I say things like this. And I'll say this, man. My wife don't want some sissy running around scared and trying to figure out who gonna do the killing if somebody comes into our house. Yeah, I'm the baddest dude on planet Earth to my wife. Maybe her dad and me are at the top of the food chain, but my wife don't want some weak man. I'm the man. I lead this house. And if somebody comes to the door, we're going to be dragging them out to the street with bullet holes in them. Everybody on my block should know that if it hit the fan, B. Tatum can clear the whole block out. This is what men are supposed to be. My wife feels secure. She feels safe anywhere, anytime. I carry my gun everywhere I go. I'm here to save the country. You know what I'm saying? If it hit the fan, I'm here to take it out. And I've been there, life and death, in these situations. But this is what, I would get on another tangent, but these are the men that women want. They don't want a guy who's wimpish. They don't want a guy who they don't feel protected. If somebody say something to my wife out somewhere and she got some weenie, or, she's married to another guy that's a weenie and he don't know whether to talk to the guy or not, you're not going to disrespect my wife in front of me. You got to be out of your mind. And I'm not saying that people should act ignorantly, but I'm going to stand up for my wife and she know that. She feels protected. I'm going to go out and work. My wife don't have to work. If she wants to, that's fine. But I'll get 10 jobs before my wife have to work and lift her finger up to go on somebody's job and slave for a check. And I think that men need to make this comeback. It's okay to be a man. It's okay to be brave. It's okay to be bold. It's okay to be hyper masculine. This is how this country is formed. When the Civil War was fought, what do you think they were doing? Slapping each other on the butt? Men were dying. By the hundreds of thousands were dying in the Civil War. All the wars that have been fought, going overseas, knowing you'll never see your family again. Men were going overseas dying at the hope and the perception that we will one day be free. And nowadays, I don't know if I'm a man. Men are supposed to be sensitive. And listen, man, I suffer in silence. And let me say this, and I'm not telling people not to express themselves. What I'm saying is that when I'm out before people, when I'm out in front of my wife, I'm the hardest dude on planet Earth. And I have an outlet. When things get tough, I know where to go. I smoke my cigars. I let it out. I talk to my boys. We vent, or whatever the case may be. But it's okay to be a strong man in public. It's okay to stand up. And I'll say that I'm not perfect and sometimes I get upset, but you can't be a weenie all the time and being soft everywhere. When you go to combat, you don't want to see your team leader crying.
Right.
He may want to cry. He may feel fear, but you don't want the team leader in fear because everybody else is going to be afraid. Now, when y'all done with the mission and everything is over, then you go to the barracks, then you can cry. But men have to step up and be leaders in a time like this. And I wish we had this program. I want to start a program. I know there's people that do this program. We should take men through this obstacle course program, even grown men, and teach them how to be strong mentally, physically, and how to be a man again. Our country has been feminized in many ways. And some of it is because there's not fathers in the home. So men don't have an example of what a real man look like. They only have an example of a good mom who's trying to do her best to play both sides. So, Jedediah, I can go down for an hour and talk about this. So I'll pass the mic back to you. But it's time for men to really step up, man. There's a couple dudes that I watch online that are the baddest dudes on planet Earth. And do they have to cry and oh, this is my soft side? I don't want to see them do that. I know that they probably do it. They have their outlets, but I want to see men be men because people are looking up to them to carry us to the victory.
Right.
Anyway.
And couple that with how women are often shamed. If a woman, decides, I want to be a mom, I want to stay home with the kids, I want to be a housewife, I want to take care of the home, I take pride in that. In 2022, they're often shamed. Modern feminists will shame those women and somehow make them feel less than, or try to make them feel less than, as if, if they don't decide to take that corporate job or climb that ladder, they're not doing what they should be doing as an empowered woman in 2022. So there's a lot that's broken as it relates to women and as it relates to men. And I think a lot of it has led to the breakdown of the family, which leads to the breakdown of the community, which leads to the breakdown of the country. So those are all excellent points that you made. And I think a lot of guys in our audience were probably cheering you on from home when they heard that. I want to close out with just a political question about obviously a topic that's very controversial, and that is the abortion topic. Do you think, I'm of the opinion that Democrats will seek to utilize this issue. This will be the issue that they utilize as a wedge issue in the midterm elections because they need women to come out and vote Democrat. And women do. They reliably do vote Democrat. So I think they're going to use this recent ruling from the Supreme Court, which again has been distorted. There's a lot of women who feel that this was an abortion ban, and it wasn't. It was really just a ruling that brought the issue back to the states where it belongs. But do you think this is going to be the issue that Democrats use? If not, what is that issue? And is it going to work for the midterm election season? Will they be successful?
Well, that's a great question, and I think it comes with emotions. How closely can they tie your women's emotional strings to this topic? And that's going to dictate where they vote majority of the time. And not majority of the women, but the women who are subject to emotions. This is how they're going to vote majority of the time. And I think that this has to be a topic. They have to use this. They can't talk about inflation. They can't talk about the economy. They can't talk about the gas prices and all this other stuff. They're going to have to talk about these subject matters that they can pull your heartstrings on. In 2020, they was talking about Black Lives Matter. Remember that? Black lives, Black people getting killed in the middle of the street. They're showing all these videos to pull on the heartstrings of Black folks and other people who are sympathetic to the cause. And then also the pandemic. This year, global warming and abortion. Because I saw a guy do it the other day on television. He was talking about Ron DeSantis in Florida and said, this is exactly why abortion should be banned, because look at the drama with people in the aftermath of Florida. It's like these people are nutty. But let me just say this, and I hope that women, I say I hope that women, but I hope that America would see, what the agenda is. Abortion taken down from the Supreme Court, at least on a federal level, is not abortion ban. And these are the topics and talking points that people have to express because some people don't read and then they believe anything that makes them feel emotional. But it's not a ban on abortion. Mm-hmm. What it is that abortion protection at the federal level was not constitutional. It was not protected in the Constitution. And finally, people actually observed the Constitution and said, we need to leave it to the states. Leaving these issues to the states are empowering the people. Mm-hmm. That's the point of our government system, is that the government should be minimal in their engagement. The people who live in these states should have rights to say what they want to occur in their state. If you don't like what they do in Florida, go move to New York where they give abortions on demand. Now, let me say this as well. When you look at abortion in general, you have to present the facts. Most abortions that are occurring are elected abortions. These are not women who are getting raped in a product of incest. That's not happening. These are not ectopic pregnancies, which are not viable pregnancies in the first place. So you're not considered to have an abortion if you have an ectopic pregnancy. Or also, this is not related to miscarriages. If a woman have a miscarriage, that is not an abortion. And however, the left is trying to present it as if, ladies, all women are affected by this. If you have a miscarriage, you could go to prison. Mm-hmm. If you have an ectopic pregnancy, which is the pregnancy occurring outside of the uterus, mm-hmm. then if that baby dies or whatever, you're going to go to prison. Yeah. If you're raped or something like that, because a lot of states still have in a clause that you can still have an abortion if you have been raped or whatever. That's a lot of states still carry that. And the life of the mother is also carried in every single state in the United States of America. So if your life is in danger, they're going to perform a procedure to save your life, which is not covered under the abortion clause. What we're looking at is that people are making poor decisions and they want to use abortion as a way out. and that is murder. I don't care what anybody say. If you kill an unborn child, it's murder. Just like if you're driving down the street and you're in your first trimester and a drunk driver run a red light while you're on the way to the abortion clinic and he kills the baby that's inside of you, they're going to charge him with murder. That is against the law. And it's also on a federal level against the law. And so we have to perceptualize the truth and teach young women that not only are we trying to say you shouldn't have an abortion, but there's a better way. Mm-hmm. It's not that we want you to ruin your life and for you to, be with this guy that you just, was in the 3-point stands for just the other night, that you got to have a baby with that guy. It's not what we're saying. We're saying that there's a better way, and you don't want to live with the guilt of what's about to happen to you when you have an abortion, whether it's an abortion through surgery or whether they give you the abortion pill. And many women don't know when they give you the abortion pill, you literally have the abortion and you lose your child in the bathroom somewhere at your house with nobody there to support you, protect you, to be there for you, comfort you. You are literally going to be traumatized for life. They don't tell you that because they're making so much money. So many women are damaged. So we want to tell you the truth about this abortion argument. We want to give you a pathway that there's another way out. And then also we want to warn you that if you go down this path, whether you go to California or anywhere else to have an abortion, that we don't want you to live a life of regret. You might as well have the child, give it up for adoption, or just see where God takes you on your path. And many women grow out of this and be happy that they actually chose life instead of death.
Yeah, it's a sad reality, but abortion is being used as birth control. And we had Abby Johnson on, the former clinic director at Planned Parenthood, who herself had abortions and then is now a big-time pro-life activist, just talking about what's really going on behind the scenes at Planned Parenthood and all of the scheming that goes on and how abortion has really become their business model at the top of the chain. So there's a lot of distortions and a lot of misinformation, actual misinformation out there about abortion, and women you're right. Women just don't know. They're told, oh, here, take these pills. It's nothing. And then they go home and they're in gut-wrenching pain and there's side effects and there's all this stuff. And they didn't feel prepared for that decision in the way that they should have been, because the goal is for these organizations, in large part, more abortions, not less abortions. Brandon Tatum, I have loved talking to you as much as I thought I would love talking to you. I have really enjoyed this hour with you. We touched on a bunch of topics. If you are ever in South Florida, you have a full invite to come and do an in-person show. We can dig more into the manosphere stuff. I'm very, very interested in that component of the conversation. We can talk politics as well, but just I have a little boy and he's growing up in a world where I want him to be a strong man. And that's how I'm going to raise him. But it gets a little harder when you have to battle big Hollywood and big tech and big pharma and all of these bigs in and big old feminism popping up on every magazine cover everywhere and all that stuff. So I'm trying to do the best I can to empower guys out there to feel really comfortable in their strength and proud of that strength, and remind them that that's why women love them, for that strength, yes. For the things that we don't have all the time. I'm not as physically strong as my husband, and I kind of dig that. So I wouldn't want it to be the other way around. So thank you so much for being here with us today. I hope you'll come visit in person in South Florida. The audience loved you, by the way. This is no surprise to any of us. And keep doing what you do. You have an incredibly relatable way of talking about these things, and that's how you touch people, not through talking points, but through your delivery is really what changes hearts and minds. So keep doing what you do. We love you.
Jedediah, thank you so much for having me. I have to come in person. I saw you do a podcast with, I think, the Poor Man's Podcast. And I love these topics of masculinity and the topics of manhood and this feminist movement. I would love to. I'm going to make this happen. I would love to come to South Florida. I would love to meet you, your husband, in person. And I would love to have these conversations because they need to be had by men who actually live this out.
Yeah,
right?
well, I live
this every day.
I'll tell you a secret. We have some really cool stuff rolling out here where there's going to be some live shows. There's going to be some live audience stuff going on, and you will be on that. I have a short list that's right at the top. I'm adding your name to that today now that I know that you're interested, because I think you would be amazing. So I look forward to that, and I can't wait to meet you in person. Thank you again for being here today and for rocking it out. And I can't wait to see what you post next on your channel, because I sat last night, I spit all my water out. I was laughing so hard. So thank you for that, Brandon. And you have yourself a great weekend. And audience, thank you again. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Leave your comments in the comment section if you want to see Brandon come back in person and talk with me about the manosphere, about men versus women, all that stuff. You got to leave it in the comment section. You got to hit that like button. Thanks for your support. We love you. Have a great weekend.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear us?